Brielle, at my birthday party, my parents didn't reserve any seat for me. When I arrived at a fancy restaurant, my mom sneered, "There is no place for you here. Go sit on the street." Haha. Everyone was laughing, so I turned away and ended all relationships. Next day when they opened the newspaper, they were shocked, started trembling. The doors of the fancy hotel opened, and I walked into a bright, beautiful entrance. A big, shiny chandelier lit up the room. Well-dressed people stood around, talking and laughing. The women wore sparkling dresses and looked like they belonged in a movie. As soon as I saw all of this, I felt a small ache in my chest. This was supposed to be my party, but I didn't feel welcome at all. It was my 30th birthday. My family had invited me, saying, "Since it's a special day, let's celebrate in a big way." I hadn't seen them in a long time. We had grown apart, but I thought maybe this would be a nice way to reconnect. I hoped it would feel good to be with my family again. I was wrong. When I got to the reception desk, the hotel staff member looked me up and down. "Are you on the guest list?" he asked, like I didn't belong there. I told him my name with confidence, but he looked confused. "Please wait a moment, miss," he said. While I stood there, feeling awkward, my mom Olivia and my sister Jessica showed up. They were dressed nicely and smiling, like rich women in a magazine. But when they saw me, their smiles changed just a little. "Oh, Laura, you're here," they said. "It's been a while." Their voices sounded polite, but cold. Then came the shock. "There's no seat for you, Laura," my mom said. "What? What do you mean?" I asked, not believing what I was hearing. She kept smiling. "We booked everything a while ago. There's no room to add another seat now. Why don't you grab something to eat at a pub nearby? That could be fun, right?" I just stood there, stunned. A pub? Was this some kind of joke? I was supposed to be the guest of honor at this party. I had stayed away from my family for a while, but I still thought they would invite me properly. When Jessica saw the look on my face, she just shrugged. "Well, you work at a pub, right? You'd probably feel more at home there," she said, clearly looking down on me. I wanted to speak, but no words came out. They didn't see me as their sister. They only saw me as the one who works at a pub. "Don't take it the wrong way, Laura," my mother added in a soft voice. "It's just that there's a place that suits you better." Her voice sounded gentle, but her words cut deep. It felt like she was telling me I didn't belong with them. My eyes began to blur. I felt a mix of sadness, anger, and disappointment rising in my throat. Still, I smiled and said, "I get it. Sorry for bothering you." I turned around. They looked almost relieved. I didn't look back. As I stepped outside, the cold night air brushed against my cheeks. The bright lights of the party grew smaller behind me as I walked away. Memories started coming back. Since I was young, I was never good enough in my mother's eyes. My sister was smart, outgoing, and always the family's pride. I loved baking, but my mom thought it was just a silly hobby. My dad, though, was different. He loved my cakes and smiled proudly every time I improved. But he passed away when I was 12. I didn't have time to heal before my mother remarried. My stepfather didn't pay much attention to me. He preferred my sister because of her good grades and charm. I felt invisible at home no matter what I did. I kept trying to win their approval, working hard, and never giving up. But they never saw me as successful. Even so, I chose my own path. After finishing vocational school, I left home and cut ties with my family. I went to Italy to train at a top restaurant. I had always loved baking, and I wanted to learn the real art of pastry making. It was tough at first. I didn't know the language, and I was alone in a new country. But I kept practicing, learning through mistakes, and never giving up. I slowly became more confident and finally decided to open my own bakery. Starting the shop wasn't easy. I faced a lot of problems. Sometimes money was tight, and sales didn't go the way I hoped. But I didn't give up. My love for baking and everything I had learned helped me keep going. Over time, more and more people started coming to my shop. Word spread, and my cakes became well known. Now, even food lovers from other countries come to try them. When I see that, I feel like all my hard work was worth it. Those moments bring me true happiness. No matter how hard things get, I've learned how important it is to believe in myself and keep moving forward. Still, my family only sees me as someone who works in a pub. My sister Jessica is married to Henry, an investment banker. He works in finance, managing money and handling big business deals. He earns a lot and is also known in high society. Because of his job, Jessica gets invited to fancy parties and expensive restaurants. She lives a rich life, but not because of anything she did. It's all thanks to Henry. My parents also enjoy that life. With Henry's help, they live in a wealthy neighborhood, travel often, and shop without worry. Suddenly, I laughed a little. That's enough, I thought. People don't change that easily. Right then, I made a decision. I would never contact my family again. I don't need their approval to know who I am. There are people out there who truly value me. I looked up at the night sky and took a deep breath. The cold air helped calm the anger I still felt inside. My life will keep going with or without my family. With that thought, I slowly started walking home. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Scott, my manager. "Laura, it's an emergency. Please come to the shop right away." His message sounded serious. I was shocked and stopped without thinking. "Scott, what happened? Tell me," I said. "I'll explain later." "Just hurry, Laura," he replied. His voice sounded serious, so I quickly turned around and ran straight to the shop. When I got there, it was dark and strangely quiet. "Scott, are you here?" I called out, feeling nervous. Suddenly, Happy birthday, Laura. The lights came on all at once, and I saw the smiling faces of all the staff. I stood frozen, eyes wide in surprise. On the counter was a beautiful birthday cake made just for me. Everyone popped party crackers and surrounded me with happy faces. Happy 30, Laura, they cheered. This is our way of saying thank you for everything you do. Their kind words filled my heart. Even if my own family didn't care, there were people here who truly appreciated me. I held back tears and smiled. Thank you. Everyone really thank you. I felt so touched by their warm celebration. Then I asked, but how did you know I was coming back? Scott scratched his head and grinned. Well, we actually sent a surprise cake to the hotel for you. But when they told us you had already left, we decided to celebrate here instead. Oh, I said surprised. A warm feeling spread through my chest. I was so thankful to have people like them in my life. Scott, everyone thank you, I said again. Scott gave a big smile and said, now let's eat cake. Everyone cheered. At that moment, I realized something. This felt like real family. I'm now known as a talented pastry chef who owns a popular bakery called Cheese Tart. I have 3 shops, and people love them for their creative desserts and cozy atmosphere. We're so popular that people book tables 4 months ahead. Even Tufts professors and wealthy customers come often. Food lovers say my shop is a must-visit place. My name has been featured in magazines and on food blogs, but even with all the success, I never told my family. I stayed distant. We barely talked. I had no desire to share my achievements with them. Since I was a child, they never believed in my dream of becoming a pastry chef. When I chose to go to culinary school after middle school, my mom and sister didn't understand. They cared about stable jobs, social status, and money. They didn't respect the path I chose. The choices I made were my own, but my family never supported them. They always wanted me to make practical decisions and never really tried to understand my love for baking or my dream. Because of that, I often felt lost and alone. Our values were too different, so I chose to keep my distance from them. Even after I found success through my own hard work, I didn't share it with them. To me, Cheese Tart wasn't just a bakery, it was proof that I could achieve something on my own. Even if my family didn't believe in me, I could still win people over with my talent and passion. That thought gave me strength to keep going. 3 months after my birthday, an international pastry competition took place. Our team from Cheese Tart won first place. Top pastry chefs from all over the world competed, and everything was judged carefully: skills, creativity, and presentation. I led our team and gave it everything I had. When they announced we had won, I was so happy and relieved that I cried. The news spread quickly, not just within the pastry world, but outside of it too. Our bakery got even more attention. One day, a well-known food TV show contacted us for an interview. I usually stayed out of the spotlight, but this time I felt it was a great chance to show off the hard work of my team, so I agreed to do it. I didn't know that this interview would also bring a big surprise involving my family. After some time, the day of the broadcast finally arrived. My staff and I sat in front of the TV at the shop, waiting nervously. When the show started, it showed me being interviewed. I looked a little shy and unsure, but I spoke about how much I love the shop and praised my staff who were seen carefully working in the kitchen. Everyone cheered every time our shop was shown. We all smiled at each other, proud of what we had built together. The host on the show introduced Cheese Tart as a famous bakery loved by food lovers around the world. I watched with a warm feeling in my heart. Just as the show ended, my phone rang. I looked at the screen. It was my mom, Olivia. I was surprised but answered the call. Right away, I heard her excited voice. Hello, Laura. What is all this about? She said, clearly shocked and confused. What do you mean? I replied, I just saw the TV show. What's this about your shop? Cheese Tart? I thought you worked at a pub, my mom said. I took a deep breath and replied calmly, Mom, I'm sorry. I haven't been working at a pub. I'm actually the owner of Cheese Tart. What? That shop they said is fully booked for 4 months. That's yours. Yes, Mom. I've always dreamed of becoming a pastry chef. Now the shop is famous, and people from around the world come to visit. There was a long pause on the other end. But, Laura, why didn't you ever tell us? I gave a small, bitter laugh. You and Jessica always said baking was just playing around. You said it wasn't a real job and that I needed something more stable. My mother didn't say anything. That's why I stopped talking about it. I thought I had to prove myself without your approval. She let out a quiet sigh. I see. But, Laura, your shop is really popular now, right? Yes, it is, I replied carefully. Then you should promote it more, she said quickly. This is perfect. Let's throw a big party to celebrate your success. I'll invite lots of people I know. It'll help get your shop even more attention. Wait, Mom, I said, frowning. When my mom says people she knows, she usually means Jessica's friends, business contacts, and others who just care about image and status. It didn't sound like she really cared about me or what I wanted. Frustrated, I sighed deeply and hung up without saying anything else. Whatever plans she had, they had nothing to do with what mattered to me. But a few weeks later, I found myself standing at the party she had planned, something she called Laura's success celebration. It was a big, flashy event. Most of the guests were my mom's social friends, Jessica's business contacts, and people clearly trying to benefit from my success. I didn't want to be there. It felt like I was forced into it. It's your party, Laura. Try to enjoy it, my mom said with a smile. But her eyes were cold. I could tell she wasn't proud. She was just trying to use the moment for her own gain. I sighed and decided to go along with it. I had to act like the guest of honor, smile for the crowd, and not ruin the mood, even though I didn't feel like celebrating at all. While I was lost in thought, a man in a suit with blonde hair looked at me with curiosity. He walked up to me and said, "Hello. I'm Henry, Jessica's husband." I paused for a second, surprised. So this was my sister's husband. "Nice to meet you," I said, shaking his hand and trying to stay polite. Henry gave me a complicated look and said, "Actually, I only found out about you recently." "I saw the TV feature on cheese tart," Henry said. "I asked Jessica if you were her sister, and she finally admitted it." "I see," I replied with a dry smile. "I thought she was an only child, especially since you weren't at our wedding." "I was really surprised when I saw the show. You're clearly very successful." So, my sister had been hiding me. She acted like I didn't exist. Maybe to her, having a sister who wanted to be a pastry chef was embarrassing. Henry looked a bit uncomfortable. I didn't take it that way. "But, your desserts are amazing. They're delicate, beautiful, like artwork." "Thank you. But, honestly, I didn't want to come to this party." "I figured," Henry said with a soft laugh. "Still, the fact that you did, maybe it means you haven't given up on your family completely?" I didn't know what to say. He had a point. If I really wanted to cut them off forever, I wouldn't have shown up at all. "Let's just see how it goes," I said with a vague smile, gently holding the dessert knife in my hand. Growing up, I always felt like the extra person in the family, but things are different now. I made it on my own. Even if Jessica still treats me the same, I can now live proudly, knowing I followed my dream. After the party, I finally returned home. I let out a deep sigh as I thought about the uncomfortable event. It was clear, there was still a big gap between me and my family, one not easily closed. A few days later, Jessica called me. "Laura, I want to celebrate a friend's birthday at your shop. You'll save a special table for us, right?" I was caught off guard. The same sister who once acted like I didn't exist was now suddenly treating me like family, but her reason didn't feel real or warm. "Sorry, Jessica, we're fully booked that day," I replied politely, but she didn't give up. "What? But we're family. Can't you make an exception? It's for a very important friend. Our shop policy is to treat every customer equally," I explained calmly. Her voice became colder. "I see. Then I'll ask for another day." Even though she gave up that time, Jessica kept calling, asking for special treatment. "Laura, can you reserve the entire cafe for us? I'm bringing some investors' wives, people who know my husband. Could you also make a special dessert set just for that day?" Again and again, I said no. I didn't plan to give special treatment just because we were related. And, honestly, I felt very uncomfortable watching Jessica try to use my shop to boost her own image. I had worked hard to follow my dream and build my bakery. Because of that, I couldn't give up my values or change how I ran my business just to meet my family's expectations. One night, after I closed the shop, I saw Henry waiting outside. "I need to talk to you, Laura," he said with a serious look on his face. "What is it?" I asked. "What do you really think about Jessica?" He said. "What about her? You know she's using your shop, right?" I was surprised. Henry had noticed. "She told me she was helping you because you're family," he continued. "But I can see now, she's just trying to use you to make herself look good." I nodded quietly. "That's how it's always been. She didn't believe in my dream and ignored me for years. But now that I'm successful, she pretends we're close." "If you hadn't become successful, there wouldn't have been that party," Henry said with a sigh. "I didn't know that side of Jessica until after we got married. But after meeting you, I've started to see who she really is." He looked straight at me. "Laura, I can't do this anymore. I understand now why your family didn't treat you right. Jessica judges people based on what they can do for her." His words made all the feelings I had been holding inside come to the surface. "Henry, are you thinking about divorce?" "To be honest, I've already decided," he said slowly. "If I hadn't met you, I might never have realized it. But seeing what you've built, how you live your own life, made me see that life isn't about being controlled by someone else." Hearing him say that gave me a strange sense of relief. Several months later, I heard that Henry and Jessica's divorce was final. I wasn't surprised. From what Henry had told me, it felt like this was bound to happen. But what did surprise me was what came after. Without Henry, Jessica couldn't keep up the fancy lifestyle she had always shown off. She had depended on his money and status. Once that was gone, everything started falling apart. My parents were also affected. They had been living comfortably thanks to Henry's support. But after the divorce, that support ended, and their money started to run out quickly. Then one day, I got a call from my mother. It had been a long time. "Laura, please, I need to talk to you." I hesitated. But in the end, I agreed to meet her. We met at a small cafe. When I saw my mother and sister, they looked completely different from how I remembered them. They used to wear expensive clothes and look flawless. Now, they wore plain outfits and looked tired and worn out. "It's been a while, Mom." "Jessica," I said. They both looked away, clearly ashamed. "I'm really sorry for everything," my mother said softly. "When you said you wanted to be a pastry chef, we didn't take you seriously. We looked down on you. But now, I understand how hard you've worked." Jessica added, "I regret not supporting your dreams too. It's probably too late to ask for your forgiveness, isn't it?" I looked at them carefully. "I'm not the kind of person who can forgive just because someone says sorry," I said honestly. They both lowered their heads. But I continued, "Still, I always hoped you would understand something. A person's worth isn't measured by money or status." They listened quietly. When I said I wanted to be a pastry chef, You called it unstable and meaningless, but I believe anyone who takes pride in their work, no matter what it is, deserves respect. People who live off others and don't try to support themselves, maybe they're the ones who are truly poor inside. My mother nodded slowly. Jessica bit her lip and said nothing. Later, I heard that Jessica had started working as a waitress at a small diner. She was confused at first, but through the busy days, she began to learn what it meant to earn and live on her own. My mother also started working as a cleaner along with my stepfather. They were now doing the kind of work they used to leave to housekeepers. Seeing them make that effort made my heart feel a little lighter. I hadn't completely forgiven them, not yet, but if my family was starting to see their mistakes and trying to change, I wanted to give them a chance. Family bonds can break in just a moment, but fixing them takes time and effort. Still, I believed it was possible to build something new, even if it was slow. A few months passed, and I decided to visit the diner where Jessica now worked. When I saw her, I was surprised. She looked so different from the sister I used to know. She was moving with confidence, serving customers with a smile, and working hard. There was no sign of the proud, cold person she used to be. Instead, she looked proud of her job. Watching her like that made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. One weekend, our family met up again at the diner. It wasn't a fancy place, but it felt calm and real. As we sat around the table, I looked at them and said softly, "Next time, why don't we have dinner at my place? I'll bake a cake. What do you think?" The moment I said it, something warm passed between us. My mother smiled gently. Jessica looked surprised, but happy. It wasn't a big moment, but it felt meaningful. That small invitation was my way of saying, I'm ready to try again. We still had a long way to go, and trust wouldn't come back overnight. But little by little, we were starting to rebuild what had been broken. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for the first time in a long while, it felt like we were becoming a family again.